When I had been in my darkest moment, I happened to read The Power of Now. What Eckhart Tolle had to say about happiness had been the impetus to go on this journey. I was in Vancouver to meet him. You were there on a park bench for 2 years, and you slept on the park bench?
Rarely, but I did spend most of the days on park benches in parks, different parks in London.
Did you eat 3 meals a day?
No. 1 meal a day if I was lucky.
Oh.
As you sit here, is it possible for you to simply watch what's happening around you without adding any interpretation to it? To just be present with what is. And you get a taste of what it's like to be on a park bench with nothing further needing to be added to this moment. The sounds, sights, people, the sound of the water, the light. Just allow it to be as it is. With that comes peace. You don't get continuously drawn into events and thoughts and emotions and reactions. You're the wider space in which all these things happen. You're the awareness behind it, without which none of this would be here. It would just be atoms and molecules in space. You are the awareness that enables this entire world to be. And so knowing that that is who you truly are, not through a concept, but through the actual realization of stepping back and allowing the phenomenal world to be as it is at this moment, allowing this moment to be as it is. That takes you deeper into yourself. And you may notice there's a certain peace in the background that happens. An alertness is required for this. You need to stay alert to what is, to sense perceptions and the energy behind sense perceptions, which is the consciousness. The alertness, it's there. Without the alertness, you will drift off into thinking. And then you think about the next, what's going to happen to me tomorrow. There is a place for making plans, but not right here on the park bench. This isn't the place for thinking about tomorrow, because you miss all this beauty and aliveness around you.
And when you're cold, not to even think about it as a cold.
No, it just is, the sensation of it. Don't even need to call it cold. And then that's okay too. It's okay. The reactivity goes out of life. Always against something, of wanting to clutch at something.
What about the search for meaning?
Now, you notice that just a moment ago you were in that state of alert presence, and it never takes long for another thought to come in and ask a question, because thought cannot tolerate the state of presence. So it will always come in and say, yeah, but what about, I don't quite understand yet. Can you tell me, what does it all mean? So it wants to add something. It wants to control in some way by understanding what this all means. Now, if you can let go, just for a moment, not for the rest of your life, just for this moment, let go of the need to understand anything, so that you're truly present in this moment. So you don't need to do it for the next hour or the next 10 minutes, just right now. Just what is. But don't forget yourself, because you are the consciousness behind it. You are the space. presence. Can you feel that your body is alive?
Yeah.
So stay with that feeling and then perceive. It's easier to perceive without interpretation when you can feel that your body is alive. You feel the inner aliveness throughout your body. So some of your attention is there. The rest is on the outside world. That roots you in the present moment. It anchors you in the present moment. And if a thought comes into your mind, you can watch that also, just the same way as you watch a dog walking past. You can watch a thought arising in your mind, and you don't have to follow it to where it wants to go. So you simply watch the thought that arises in your mind and let it go in the same way that the dog walks past you. Or if you choose to, you can follow the thought, and then you can say, I just thought of another question. You can do that too. But to see the possibility that also, in the same way that you observe the outer world here as you sit on the bench, you can also observe the inner world, the world of thoughts and emotions. Thoughts want to arise continuously, and that's fine, that's what they do. But there's no need to get drawn into each thought that arises and immediately go with it to where it wants to go. Otherwise, you're always following every thought, like a dog following the scent.
Does it matter which?
No, it doesn't matter. You can experiment. You can experiment with thought. You can follow some thoughts, and you can watch other thoughts. You find out for yourself. You can play. You can see that you are bigger than your thoughts. You don't have to be dominated by your thoughts, because thoughts create lots of problems too, unnecessary problems, and they can obscure the aliveness of life at this moment. There are many people walking around here who are thinking about other things. So they're thinking about the next one, they're thinking about tomorrow. But this is not the place for that. There is a place for planning and thinking about tomorrow, but why spoil the beauty of this and the aliveness of this with thinking about the next moment? Is that going to be better than this one? This is it. It's not going to get that much better. This is what could be more beautiful than this. It's the awakening of something within you that is deeper than thought. That's really the main thing. And that's already there, you just didn't know it.
Why didn't I know this?
It's a deep-seated habit of being totally identified with thinking. It's the human condition, which could be described as lost in thought. Because up to now, evolution has been unconscious. It was automatic. But now evolution is consciously chosen by a species, and that's a revolutionary thing. And you are part of that.
So I can still make movies, I can still have a girlfriend.
Oh, yes.
Even if I'm conscious.
Yes, it's beautiful. It's a playground. You play around with the world. You take action, you relate, but you're not lost in it. Most humans are lost in it.
What about pain? I mean, physical pain or emotional pain of losing someone?
Most of the human pain is psychologically created. There's an enormous amount of psychological pain, suffering, I call that. When suffering goes, and there's a possibility for humans now to live without suffering, that is the possibility. There may still be some physical pain. It may be that you get toothaches or bodily pains from time to time. Suffering is another level that lies on top of the pain. Suffering implies a story, a little me that is unhappy, a mentally constructed entity, a little me that has an unhappy story that is its identity. And that creates an enormous amount of suffering. Not only do you make yourself suffer, you make people around you suffer. To be at one with life is to be at one with the present moment, because that's the only place where life can be found. You cannot leave the space of now. That stays with you, whatever you do and wherever you go. Your life has never been not now and will never be not now. Are you making the present moment into an enemy some way, internally, through thinking about something that's nothing to do with now? I need to figure something out. Well, first of all, be here fully, and then whatever is needed in your life comes. It comes out of the power that dwells in the present moment, that most people overlook. There's an enormous power here, which is the power of life itself. And most people look for something and ignore this. And the power of life itself is inseparable from who you are in the depth of your being. Many times you will forget. But the moment you realize that you forgot, there's the possibility of saying, yes, I lost the present moment. And there's the possibility of choosing to re-enter the present moment. The first thing that happens when you re-enter the present moment, you become more aware of sense perceptions. You suddenly, there's a greater alertness. And then you become more aware of the aliveness in your body. You feel the life within. It's like the entire vibrational frequency of your body shifts when you become present. It's a different state of consciousness. More alert, more alive. And many times you will lose it. And then you'll remember. And that's good enough. Now then, don't believe the mind when it tells you, you can't do it now, you've got too much on your mind, you can't be bothered with the present moment. Yeah. Those are just thoughts. There's no need for you to follow those thoughts. Just watch them. They're thoughts that the mind throws up. You don't need to believe in them because they're not true. When the mind tells you, you can't be present now because you've got too much on your mind, then you can say, let's see if that's true. And then you feel, there's an aliveness in my hand, there's an aliveness in my body. There's beauty all around. And you become present again. The alertness returns. And when there is time to think. Then you sit down and say, let's think, what plane am I going to catch tomorrow? What time do I have to go to the airport? What do I have to do now? Pick up the phone, make a phone call? Fine, that's beautiful. You're not losing yourself in future. That's practical matters. And once you've done the practical matters, you've planned your next week, then you come back to the now. The inner transformation is not really about finding lots of answers to your questions, but finding a new relationship to thought, where not every thought seduces you anymore. And if a beautiful girl runs past and you find yourself following her, you don't have to think, I shouldn't be watching this girl because I'm spiritual now. No. If you can let go, just for a moment, not for the rest of your life, just for this moment, let go of the need to understand anything so that you're truly present in this moment. It's just right now. Just what is. But don't forget yourself, because you are the consciousness behind it. You are the space, the presence. Life wants to support you, but first you need to be open to life. So you've probably come here with lots of questions, but let's start off with me asking you just one question and then you can ask yours.
Okay.
May I ask how old you are?
Yes, I'm 24.
24. Not that it matters, but just... So 24 means you've already had quite a few life experiences. Mm-hmm. You've been to school, mm-hmm. You've fallen in love.
I think so.
Fallen out of love.
I think so.
And have had all kinds of experiences, perhaps in different places, meeting different people, different circumstances. The body probably has been well most of the time, but you've also experienced maybe one or two illnesses. Yes. Now, is there, in all those things that you have experienced so far, which is a continuously changing flux of things, is there any ingredient in there that was always the same, that didn't change? I'd just like to ask you to see if you can find any ingredient in all the things that you have experienced so far that's always been the same. We could start perhaps by asking, could it be the things around you? Obviously not, because the things around you change continuously. Could it be your thoughts? No, because the thoughts that go through your mind also change continuously. Could it be your feelings or your emotions? No, as you know, they also change all the time. So what is it, if anything, that hasn't changed, that doesn't change? Is there one ingredient in all your experiences, good or bad, up or down, that's always been there?
Well, I think I've been in here. I've been inside.
Now when you say I, what does that mean? What is that I? Now, because we've already seen it can't be your thoughts because they change all the time. Your feelings or emotions, they change all the time. Your sense experiences, things that you perceive around you, change all the time. So wherever we look, there's change. So when you say I and point to the I as that which doesn't change, it cannot be what happens to you. It cannot be the thoughts that go through your mind. It cannot be the emotions, the feelings that you experience. So what is the nature of that I? What does that word mean or point to?
It's listening. It's what hears, what's behind.
What's behind the thoughts? What's behind the sense perceptions? What's behind all the experiences and the feelings and so on? So the question that I'm asking does not really require an abstract answer, but I want you to actually feel or sense inside yourself that which doesn't change. No matter where you go, no matter what you do, or who you're with, or whether the body is well or unwell, when I ask,
You said it's I, and I've asked, what's the nature of that I? And now you may be stuck for words. But you said one word, and that was listening. Now, when you're truly listening, there is a certain alert spaciousness. Because otherwise you're not truly listening. And so if that had to be expressed through a gesture, it could be, you could raise a finger gently and say, listen. So I say to you, listen. And you listen, there's a moment of spacious awareness, and there's no thought in it. So when you said listening, you were actually getting very close to the nature of who you truly are underneath all the circumstances of your life. And circumstances includes thoughts and emotions. If you don't find that, who or what you are underneath all the circumstances, no matter how many questions you ask and how many good answers you get, won't help you very much, and there will be no end to the questioning, because every answer generates further questions. So we are talking about becoming familiar with a different state of consciousness. Not that that has never been there. It's always been there because it's the I, but it's always been overlooked. Because the circumstances, things that happen to you and your thinking and your emotions have such overwhelming pulling force that they always pull your attention in completely. And so attention is that which is there when you're truly listening. And in the moment of attention, there's no thinking, but there is an aware presence. So, the answer that you gave is absolutely right. Not everybody would have put it this way, but listening points to who you truly are, underneath all the things that continuously change. Now, I'd like you to, as we speak, this is not an intellectual discussion, because if this were intellectual, you should have gone to a professor of philosophy or some intellectual at a university.
I've been over there.
And ultimately, you get many answers, but all those answers will always make you end up with more questions.
Yeah.
Because they don't get you to the core of who you are. So let's start off with that. And what we are pointing to is a sense of I, of beingness, that is deeper than anything that happens in your life. It's always there, has always been there, right now. And that is closely related to the state of attentive listening, to get in touch with that, to sense it. Underneath it all, there is a timeless presence. Even in 50 years' time, in 60 years' time, when this body is getting old, and this body, the cells, it won't be the same body. The cells of the body will have been renewed many times. There won't be a single cell. Materially, there won't be a single thing that's left in 50 years, even though you may still be alive. There won't be a single thing that's left materially that's here now. Every cell will have been renewed. And so the body will have grown older, and yet something timeless deep within will still be exactly the same as it is now, untouched by time. I, before it becomes this or that, because the moment you say, I am American, I am this or that, I am a professional, or I am a jobless person, or I am a millionaire, or I'm a homeless person. That's all form, identifications with changing circumstances. And so people look for something there to provide permanency in their lives. They want to identify with something that they finally can say, there, that's it. I found it. What they really want to say is, I found myself finally. So they look for themselves through external possessions, through acquired knowledge, through an accumulation of experiences, or sexual encounters. Some people derive their sense of self from that. The more women you can conquer or seduce or have sex with, the more you feel, oh, I'm getting somewhere. Of course, after a few years you realize it's not getting you anywhere. Not if you are, nothing will get you anywhere, which means to yourself, if you're looking for yourself in any experience. And that's the fallacy of most people. They look for themselves in changing circumstances. They look for themselves in their thought processes. They identify it with their thoughts and opinions and their judgments and this and that. And it changes. Your opinions may change. You may be a Democrat now, and in 50 years' time, when you become a solid citizen, you may be become a Republican. You have a completely different set of opinions. It's just different set of opinions, and then you feel like the thoughts have changed, but the underlying I hasn't changed. So can you go through life being in touch with that? Being in touch with that in the different situations, different circumstances, different places, so that you're not completely lost in the things. I sometimes call it the thingness of life. One thing after another. There's nothing wrong with that. But if you haven't found yourself yet, if you don't know what that I is, then you're looking for the I in things. And things include your thinking, because every thought is also a formation. It has a certain form, a thought form. It comes and then it goes. Every emotion, it comes, it's an energy field inside you, it comes, has a certain lifespan, and then it subsides, and then another one comes. That's all the thingness of life. It's forms that come and go all the time. The only thing that doesn't come and go is I. That which underlies all that. And that's not an intellectual thing that I'm trying to convince you of, because that would not be helpful. The question is, at this moment, can I sense the presence that I am, that is prior to anything that happens to me or has ever happened or can ever happen? Can I sense that right now? Yes, you can, because if you couldn't, you wouldn't have said listening. Because listening, you already knew. It came from that deeper place of alert attention that in itself has no content. The content comes when things happen. But in itself, the I that you are, one could describe it as space. It's not lifeless, it's full of life. All of life comes out of that. But in itself, it is spacious. Buddha called it emptiness. And it's completely misunderstood by people, because the university professors look at the word emptiness and then say the Buddhist teachings are life-denying. The total opposite is true, because Jesus called the same space the fullness of life. Because at the same time it is life in its fullness. To be able to sense that, at first it's very subtle in the background, but as you become familiar with that dimension, it's always there somewhere, no matter what you do. Even when you meet a beautiful girl and you're talking to her, and you can, from there you can listen to yourself talking, and it's fine. You're not totally lost in your experiences. There's always an a sense of aliveness and peace in the background. And that influences how you live your life. That sense, the I, the timeless I, because on the surface you have the time-bound I that grows older, it's identified with thinking and emotions, and things happen to it and so on. But underneath it is the timeless I. Now, the word I is probably the most frequently used word in the language. Whenever you listen to people, say, what's the word they use most frequently when you listen to a conversation? Probably you'll find it's the word I. Now, what they refer to is not the timeless, because they haven't found that. They refer to a superficial sense of I identification with things, with thinking, with emotions. I am angry. I am American. I am this. I am that. Identification with something. So that I is the greatest delusion, because there's no substance there, nothing permanent.
So if I'm not something, am I nothing?
Yes, I would pronounce that differently, though. I would say, you are no thing. Now, there's a difference between no thing and nothing. Nothing is simply a denial, but no thing means there is a presence there, but it has no form. Nothing that you can grasp. It has no shape and no form and no name. The ancient Chinese call it the Tao, which cannot be named. There's a beautiful, it's 3,000 years old Chinese book of wisdom, the Tao Te Ching. I recommend it to everybody. And the first line in it is, the Tao that can be named or spoken of is not the true Tao. And so that there is the presence that you sense, a presence that has no form. In ancient language, Christian, Hebrew, there's the word spirit. But I don't use that word because it's been used for hundreds of years and misunderstood. So if I used spirit, people would immediately have some image of what it is, some form, or call it the Holy Spirit, and there's hundreds of years of misconceptions of what spirit is, so we forget about the word spirit. But in its original true meaning, that's what spirit points to. The essence of who you are is formless. Now, we could use the word consciousness as the essence of who you are. And you can sense it, but you can never grasp it. And you cannot really know it. You can only know something that is not you, an object. Anything that becomes an object of consciousness. I look at this plant, and I know it by looking at it, and by having a thought for a name for it. I say, I know this plant. This plant is an object that arises in consciousness. And I look at you. I see a shape and a form. And obviously, what I see, nobody knows whether what you see out there is actually there, because the image that you have in your mind of your surrounding environment is, there's an optical, the eye are like a camera lens. They send a picture into the brain, that the picture is translated into nerve impulses and chemicals that reach the brain, and the brain decodes what I see and then reassembles a picture. And then suddenly I see you. Nobody knows what's actually out there. But let's just leave it. Here we have, looking at you, this is an object that arises in consciousness, in the space that I am. Then I look away, and another object arises in the space that I am. or I listen to something that arises in the space that I am. A thought comes that arises in the space that I am, the presence that I am. But the presence itself, you can't know it in the way that you know a plant, or you know a person, or you know a sound, or you know a thought, because it would have to reflect back on itself. You cannot make it into an object, so you cannot make yourself into an object of knowledge. You can only be that presence, but you can't know it because you would externalize it. And this is the mistake that humans have made over thousands of years. They made themselves into an object. And they talk about me and my story. I'm sure you have one. Yeah. The story of me. And so when you make yourself into an object, you live with yourself. Some people love themselves one day and they hate themselves the next day. And the following day they're not quite sure. And then you have and then you have feeling guilt. People have relationships with an image that they have in their mind of themselves, me. People talk to themselves in their mind. Well, that wasn't very good. You didn't do a good thing. You shouldn't have done that. Who is talking to whom? There's a voice in the head that talks to yourself. The mind has split itself in two and is talking to itself. And out of that continuous talking comes the story of me and identification with that. And the questions that you are going to ask probably have a lot to do with the story of me, to find out more about it, about my life. Because after all, that's what everybody is most interested in. You are here because you are the main character in the story of yourself. And the main character in that story has quite a few things that he feels puzzled about and doesn't understand and wants questions. And the story, in some ways it's worked and in other ways it hasn't worked. And so the character in the story has come here and wants to know how to make the story work better. Isn't that so?
Yes.
Now, whatever answers anybody can give you of how to make the story work better, there are things you can make the story work better, but all that doesn't really help unless you get to the bottom behind the story, the I behind the story. Then, if you are in touch with that throughout your life, the story will unfold with much greater ease because there is a deeper dimension that is there. But if there's only the story, nothing will ever satisfy the main character in that story, you. If the main character in that story, you, has never known the deeper I, the timeless presence that is the consciousness that you are, the attentive, spacious